Hello, everybody. Dr. Elena Sherwood here, therapist, author, and life coach. It's been a little while since I've sat down and had a deep conversation with you. So here we go. I have been plagued with a grave disappointment and sadness about how many people in my life out there that I know how many people are living on hold. Okay, so it's everything from they're waiting because they're waiting. Haven't we all done it? We waited for several things in our lives. We're waiting for that phone call. We're waiting until we find Mr. Right, Mrs. Right, the partner of our dreams. We're waiting until we finish school. We're waiting until we have kids. We're waiting for the baby stages to be over, and then the toddler stages, and then until we get them to school, until they're older, and the dream job, the dream income, the dream nest egg. It just seems like all we are ever doing is waiting. Now, I waited my fair share of things, and this is exactly why I am here today talking about it. Because it wasn't until the last several years that I realized exactly how much of my life had been put on hold. See, it's everything from how well I'm going to take care of myself. There's always somebody else to be tended to. There's always somebody else who needs me. Oh my goodness, helping professional or not. And what I haven't really realized is many of these things where I believe I was required, there were actually several of these things that were in fact optional. Yes, you heard it, optional. Let me preface by saying that I love every role that I've had, and I have embodied as best I could the requirements, duties, obligations, and all of that in all the roles that I've played as a wife, as a mom, as a sister, as a daughter, as a friend, as a relative, as a neighbor, and all of that. For those of you who know me very well, I absolutely love human beings in general, and I love seeing the best in people. Hence, I'm drawn to people for real conversations, and sometimes I am also, sadly, drawn to overgive. Not to anybody else's mistake or fault, that's the word, not to anybody else's fault, but my own. We don't really realize how much we give until it's too late. We often don't realize how much we are on hold until it's too late. When we feel that we're resentful towards those who we believe have taken too much of us, or we feel like we're resentful of those who believe now have achieved what we had hoped to achieve. And I'm not even talking about necessarily a career or anything like that. Just we see people who look like they're really finally living the lives that they're living the lives that we really want. And oftentimes it is our own circumstances and our own choices that have put us where we are and when we aren't. Please do not mistake this for any kind of judgment or blame, because that is far from what I'm getting at here. We make the best decisions we can. And many of us, circumstances are just going to get in the way that we have, in fact, no choice but to put ourselves on hold. And those of you who are parents, you know exactly what that's like, where you have no choice but to deny your own needs for the sake of those you love. And we do that willingly, or maybe resentfully, but whatever it is, we do it because that's what we do for people we love. But what I'm talking about here is this other little voice inside of us that says, no, it's not your turn. Because sometimes it really is our turn, and we don't allow ourselves that turn. What are the deep-rooted issues that cause that? It's a big story. Anywhere, somewhere in your past. I mean, this is a very, very deep kind of thing about worthiness and about what kind of care you received, what kind of relationships you had, whether or not you were honored, dismissed, valued, taken advantage of, forgotten. Any number of things in our history will carve out this kind of story we have in our own minds, not by choice, again, by circumstances that we're born into. What I really dearly want for you to hear today, though, is for you to understand that regardless of what shaped you and what beliefs you have come to believe, that today in this moment, as a full-grown adult, you have choices. You do have a lot more choice than you may realize. And we all know people in our lives who they need things, and we are all too willing to give them advice and to give them suggestions, and they don't hear us. And you know that, you know those folks in your life, and it is quite frustrated because there are also moments when we are unwilling to hear, and we are unwilling to accept, and we are unwilling to recognize that it is in fact our time. That there have always been, in some way, moments when it was our time. And that's okay. This isn't about judgment. This isn't about blame. This is simply about understanding. Do we know? Are we aware of all those moments that we missed the opportunities to take what really belonged to us in terms of self-care and self-value and self-worth? This is big, folks, because it's until we understand what these opportunities presented themselves as before, and what might already presenting themselves at today, we're going to continue to do the same thing of ignoring them. We're going to continue to undervalue ourselves, undervalue, devalue, discount, dismiss ourselves. Many of us do it honorably for the sake of others, and I commend you for that. But you exist outside of what others can take from you. You exist well outside what others need of you and what you can do for them. This is going to be up to you. It's going to be up to you to take the steps that you need to. I've spent a good 30-something years in the helping profession. And, you know, some days I couldn't even lead the horses to water, so to speak. And heartbreaking for me, because much as I see what is possible for others, if they can't see it, I'm just as powerless as they are. And I have burnt myself out quite literally in the many ways I have tried to get through to people and to break down the resistance in terms of what they allow themselves to see as possible. I have worked way harder, and that's a rule that many of us therapists tell ourselves. It's the number one rule: never work harder than your clients, because you're going to burn out, and they're not interested in hearing what it is you're killing yourself to tell them. And so I've done that. Not quite literally killed myself, but I have done and gone over and above as far as I could, only to find myself exhausted and continue to be unheard. And that's okay. That's okay, because people will they'll only be as far as they can at the time. But I wish, when I was in the waiting place, when I was in the self-denial, the message I really wished I had heard, it was probably transmitted to me, but I didn't hear it. But the one I really wish I had heard was that it was also time for me. There is always a time for me to be valuable, to be central to my needs. And we erase the word selfish, because self-care, self-awareness is exactly that. It's just care and awareness. My hope is that you glean from that message today that same thing, that's exactly where you can be. Somebody will always need something from you. There will always be people willing to take anything that you allow them access to. And you're going to have you'll exercise your personal choice in doing that, but recognize that many human beings, amazing as they are, have the propensity and the capacity and the tendency to overgive and to deny their own needs. Let that not be you today, folks. Let that not be you, beautiful soul who has spent the last 10 minutes listening to this. I wish you peace. I wish you joy. I wish you abundant self-worth. Thank you for listening.